This is Florida, a state in southeastern region of the United States that borders the Gulf of Mexico to the west, Alabama to the northwest, Georgia to the north, the Atlantic Ocean to the east, and the Straits of Florida and Cuba to the south. For the first time in over 3 decades, the economy of the USA is growing at a faster rate as compared to the economy of China, casting intense doubts on whether China could ever beat the United States. All these thanks to Florida, a state which has recently been flourishing to remarkable stretches. Florida's economy ranks 4th among all the American states. In the third quarter of 2023, the real GDP growth rate for Florida was 6.1% per year, compared with 2.3% the previous quarter. Today, the state of Florida has a population of around 22,954,162, having grown an annualized 1.3% over the 5 years to 2024, which ranks it 5th out of all 50 US states by growth rate. Florida's gross state product in 2024 reached $1.4 trillion, with a growth of 4.7% over the 5 years to 2024. So, what's driving Florida's rapid growth today? What are the potential problems caused by these growth zones? And could this be maintained for a long term? These are some of the questions we will be answering in today's episode. Just make sure that you brace yourselves tightly as we explain the economy of Florida in details and how it has helped improve the overall economy of the United States of America. Known for its prominence as an important tourist destination place, Florida is famous for its beautiful beaches, pleasant weather, and the location of Disneyland, which have by far contributed to what it is today. Besides that, the state has been doing the robbery thing of growing its economy at the expense of other states that make up the USA. The area that eventually became the state was originally home to the first western city on the North American continent, but its development lagged significantly behind regions to the north due to its challenging geography. Even now, the state is characterized by swamps, mosquitoes, natural destination for most of its early history. It was mainly a holiday spot, and even that was limited. However, this changed with the construction of railroads that connected its inland regions to major industrial and population centers in the north. This not only boosted tourism, but also made farming and light industry viable. Today, these early industries remain important to the state's economy, but they have been joined by more modern sectors. The state also has a surprisingly large mining industry, focused not on metals or fossil fuels, but on one of the world's largest reserves of phosphorus, a naturally occurring chemical primarily used as fertilizer. The USA has the 3rd largest agricultural industry in the world behind China and India, with their massive populations, and on a per capita basis, farming in the US is far more productive than it is almost anywhere else in the world. The phosphate dug out of the ground in Florida supplies 3/4 of all fertilizer in the country, which beyond just being a great revenue center for Florida, also means that the USA as a whole is a lot less dependent than most other countries on limited global supplies of this resource for their food security. Now, up to what I have discussed to this point, you might be thinking that they are what have been driving the recent growth of the state. But what if I told you that those are the industries that have been causing controversies? Florida is a unique place, and much of its distinct reputation stems from the economic factors that draw people from all walks of life. The state has the highest level of net migration in the USA, with more people moving to Florida than even to states like Texas, which has also been in the spotlight for its recent influx of new residents. Since 2020, Florida has gained nearly as many new residents as New York has lost. Unlike many other states experiencing a surge in new residents, this trend isn't new for Florida, while a significant portion of this migration consists of retirees, which explains why Florida's population growth isn't as rapid as Texas. Since older residents tend to pass away as quickly as they arrive, the overall population is still increasing. This growth stands in contrast to other major US economies like New York, which has been stagnant for over a decade, and California, where the population is declining. The fact that Florida's population is growing, even modestly, indicates there's more than just retiree appeal drawing people in. Interestingly, many of Florida's new residents are young, highly skilled workers, and both they and the retirees are relocating to the state for similar reasons. Number 1, taxation. Florida does not have a state income tax, Therefore, it allows people from states like New York and especially California to save a significant amount of money by relocating there. For retirees, this helps their savings last longer. But more recently, it has also drawn many individuals working in some of the state's rapidly growing industries. Other minor reasons, like those I mentioned earlier, like nice beaches and a lower overall cost of living than other states, also make up for the high immigration rates. Florida wouldn't be able to attract some of the most skilled and productive workers in the US if there weren't jobs available for them. Fortunately, the state has experienced a significant rise in finance and technology companies establishing major operations, and in some cases, moving their headquarters there. Miami, rather than New York City, now has the highest concentration of international banks in the US, and many tech companies have set up shops in Florida's largest city due to its business-friendly environment. While there have been notable instances of business interests clashing with government power in Florida, which can affect the region's attractiveness for investment, work, and business, the state is still widely seen far less restrictive than major hubs like California and New York. The rapid increase in average incomes in Florida over the past decade is largely due to the influx of already productive and highly paid workers rather than a significant boost in the state's own productivity. These workers have moved either to work remotely or to follow the large companies that have relocated to Florida. While this trend has been highly beneficial for the state, it hasn't necessarily been positive for the national economy or for Florida residents on an individual level. Now, this is where we are going to introduce the concept of brain drain and capital flight. And for those of you who don't understand these terms, brain drain is actually a phenomenon whereby talented professionals flee one country to another in search of better pay and working conditions. On the other hand, capital flight is a situation whereby assets or money rapidly flow out of a country due to an event or an economic consequence. Having that in mind, let's now see how those terms apply to this situation. But to expound on them a bit, let's start with brain drain. Surely enough, many of are quite familiar with this, because it has been a great tool of economic warfare among different nations. Let's say, if a tech worker moved from California to Texas, not only would California miss out on their tax revenues, California-based companies may not be able to find the workers they need to continue their operations, and eventually they will have to move to where they can find workers. While for capital flight, if people move, they tend to bring their staff with them, including their spending money, which denies capital from where they are moving from and provides it to where they are moving to. This has been a major problem for a lot of national economies in modern history, as moving internationally has become more common. Extreme examples like China and South Africa have even imposed restrictions on how much capital their people are allowed to take with them if they leave the country, because the exit of wealthy citizens could otherwise have serious impacts on the economy. In a sovereign nation like the USA, where freedoms are highly valued, such restrictions wouldn't be feasible. This is why capital flight and brain drain can sometimes lead to even more significant challenges. It's important to note that while many people are currently relocating to Florida from states like New York, Illinois, and California, there was a time when numerous other states across the country faced a similar problem, losing skilled workers to the very states that are now experiencing worker outflows to Florida. The United States, as the world's greatest beneficiary of skilled migration and foreign capital, finds it somewhat ironic that states like Florida and Texas are now creating similar challenges within the country. However, these challenges are very real. Before diving into them, it's important to acknowledge the benefits of the US federal system. The multiple levels of government provided an added layer of control and redundancy to the national economy, making it harder for a single bad policy, leader, or idea to cripple the entire system. Too much oversight, and well, it just becomes another unitary country with an added layer of bureaucracy. And too little oversight can cause the states within a country to start competing with one another. If every state in the USA start competing to attract the most talented workers and valuable industries, it could lead to a race to the bottom in terms of regulations, tax policies, and incentives. This trend is already underway, with cities vying to lure companies to establish new headquarters in their metro areas. While this may provide a short-term boost to regional economic centers, it is likely to come at the cost of overall economic stability. Businesses, policymakers, and economists often criticize certain policies, but those policies usually exist for a reason. Moreover, competition between states can create feedback loop where poorer states fall further behind wealthier ones. Talented workers are drawn to areas where they can earn more and enjoy the lifestyle associated with wealthier regions, inadvertently strengthening those wealthy states at the expense of poorer ones. As the gap between rich and poor states widens, it increases the pressure on productive individuals in poorer states to relocate to richer ones. Addressing extreme regional inequality will either require politically unpopular interventions or could eventually lead to a situation where separate states need to be treated as almost entirely different economies. The question is, will this work? Please don't forget to share with us your suggestions and opinions in the comment box below. Thanks for watching to this point. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Let's meet in our next episode.